It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5 o'clock. Good morning. It is Wednesday, January 29th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds today. The high is going to be 48. That's nice. Tonight and overnight, partly cloudy, low 26. And then Thursday, sunshine, high 38. If you are walking out the door with us right now, it is 40, partly cloudy in Smithtown out on Long Island. It's 34 and partly cloudy in Hamilton over in New Jersey. And it's 37 and a couple clouds right outside our Midtown studios. We have a lot to get to as we work our way up. 6 o'clock hour, Sid and friends in the morning. So I always have a hard time with this word, TB, the disease TB, tuberculosis. Is that how you say it? I was almost going to skip this story because I have a hard time saying it, but it's a big story. Tuberculosis. That's the great thing is you can call it TB, but I wanted you to know what I was talking about. See, there's certain words I can't. Anything with a little R in the middle sometimes gives me some difficulty. But there's no laughing matter here. TB outbreak in Kansas City is now the largest documented one in U.S. history. Correspondent Ann Thompson has more on this story.
State officials report 67 active cases in 2 counties and 79 latent cases where people are infected but not sick and can't spread it to others.
Yeah, so there have been 2 deaths associated with this outbreak. Health officials say it started last year, largest outbreak since the state itself first started monitoring and reporting all the way back to 1950. Doctors say, it's concerning, but they're not freaking out just yet.
It ranges from very mild symptoms that may have been persistent for several weeks or months to extremely ill patients who've had symptoms for quite a while, but then seek medical care, and by that time they are extremely ill.
Dr. Hawkinson there shares more on how long it takes for tuberculosis, there we go, I did it there, to clear.
We do have treatment for this disease, and typically the treatment lasts about 6 months.
Yeah, so TB is an airborne disease that's spread when someone coughs or sneezes, so it's easy to pass it around. So we'll monitor that outbreak, which has some people freaked out. People freaked out up in the Bronx, happy some migrants who are criminals off the streets there. This multi-agency operation concentrated in the Bronx yesterday, targeting dozens of migrants for arrest and deportation, including a purported member of Tren de Agua, wanted in connection with caught-on-camera home invasion and a shooting that's connected to Colorado. So they took this guy, Anderson Zambrano Pacheco, off the streets. Heavily armed agents could be seen walking in the High Bridge section of the Bronx. And neighbors, they were really happy to hear that this guy was gone because they knew who he was. They didn't necessarily know he was a gang member. They knew he was trouble, though, because he took over an apartment. They don't think he was even paying rent.
All you see in is black and brown neighborhoods being targeted by...
So this is somebody who's upset, claiming that the agents are only going after black and brown neighborhoods.
All you see in is black and brown neighborhoods being targeted by Homeland Security and ICE. But what about the European immigrants, like Ukraine, Russia, all these other type immigrants? Not only black and brown.
Yeah, but the vast majority of people that had microphones in front of their faces yesterday, because there were a ton of reporters up there, were just ecstatic that these people were taken off the streets. They were like dangerous criminals, cart them away, and that's what they did yesterday. There was another arrest on Creston Avenue in the Bronx. A suspect reportedly wanted in connection with a double murder in the Dominican Republic. Here's the local DEA agent who was part of this yesterday.
We conducted an operation today to use all of our resources in the government to remove those violent, criminal, illegal drug traffickers from our city streets. The ones that are causing the most harm, the ones that are poisoning our youth and causing gun violence in our cities.
Yes, so we saw these arrests. There were cameras capturing it. The agents themselves had cameras, so you could see exactly what they were up to.
I feel bad for those people that really came to this country, to get a better future. But are fault of all the criminals. Now those people have to pay.
So what ICE is telling us, they took about 20 people into custody up in the Bronx yesterday. Immigration raids, of course, underway all across the country. Gabe Gutierrez has more.
The number of daily arrests rising. A senior administration official telling NBC News ICE arrested nearly 1,200 undocumented immigrants in one day. Roughly half had criminal records, in addition to being in the country illegally.
And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, she was part of the raids that took part in the Bronx yesterday. She drove along as they took these dangerous people off the streets. She claims the ringleader of a violent Venezuelan gang among those that were picked up in the Bronx yesterday.
We did encounter and incarcerate a Tren de Agua member, one of the ringleaders. He had warrants out for his arrest in Colorado.
And she credits President Trump for following through on the promise that he would make America safe from these dangerous migrants.
The community is safer now. That's the reality of it. Everybody who has been concerned about walking their children to school or spending and doing business in these communities now know that New York City is safer because these dangerous criminals are gone. I appreciate the president following through on what he promised the American people. He promised them he would make America safe, and that's exactly what we're doing.
And here's the neighbor I was talking to you about before, who lived in the same building as one of these people who was arrested yesterday. And he said the guy was a total nuisance, and he knew he was a bad guy, and he said he was about to call ICE himself to report him. So he was happy to see those agents making a wake-up call yesterday.
I mean, I was planning on calling ICE, to be honest with you. So the building got worse the moment these people came in. I don't know how they got in. I don't know how they got into this apartment. They broke into it. They brought all their family. They would sit out front smoking weed all goddamn day. I have a newborn. So I'm walking out with a newborn, and it's hard to even get through the stairs because of them. So I'm glad they're gone.
Yeah, thank God. Fears of the ICE immigration raids, there's some downsides to it, and there has been here in New York City. Some parents afraid to drop their kids off at school, and the school system trying to figure out how they'll deal with ICE agents if they show up at the schools. In Cincinnati, the same thing. They're telling teachers there that there's a specific plan if the agents show up at the door of the school, that they need to call the legal department. The legal department steps in.
Since the current president was inaugurated, about 50% of my students have stopped attending on a daily basis. Families and parents are writing me saying they don't want to send their children to school.
Yeah, so that's at Aiken High School in Cincinnati.
I have seen a sharp decline in the attendance from my students who are usually so eager to learn. In multiple classes, I am missing half of my students, many of whom who have said specifically that they're scared to come to school because of the potential of those raids.
So that school board in Cincinnati, school board even in Asbury Park, Paterson, New Jersey, I mean, the list goes on, says they will protect these kids if they're in the school building and they want them to come to class. But in the case, at least in this one, these teachers speaking out in Cincinnati, 50%, that's a lot of kids missing from class. 5:09 WABC News Time. All the talk in Washington yesterday was about President Trump's plan to freeze federal aid. This announcement came down yesterday. A federal judge pausing Trump's plan to freeze that aid. Senator Schumer's been highly critical of the freeze.
This is cruelty. This is lawlessness. This is a heist done on a national scale.
Okay, so the White House yesterday saying President Trump's freeze on federal aid was not a blanket pause. In a first briefing of Trump's second term, his new press secretary, well, it's the new press secretary of this administration anyway, Caroline Leavitt, faced questions about that order.
Assistance that is going directly to individuals will not be impacted.
Yeah, she was saying it's the responsibility of the Trump administration to be stewards of America's tax dollars. So they wanted to look around and see how this money is being spent. The freeze, she said, would not impact Social Security, Medicare, direct payments to individuals such as food stamps, but they're looking at everything.
This administration, if you are receiving individual assistance from the federal government, you will still continue to receive that. It is the responsibility of this president and this administration to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. That is something that President Trump campaigned on.
Even the United Nations was weighing in on this, expressing concern about President Trump's decision to freeze most foreign U.S. aid to look it over.
In a statement, Antonio Guterres has called for additional exemptions to be considered. He says lives and livelihoods depend on the support adding that the U.S. is one of the largest aid providers in the world.
Yes, so the president ordered that 90-day pause on foreign assistance and for existing programs to be reviewed, but a federal judge is pausing all that, so we don't know when it'll be enacted again. Meanwhile, the White House says President Trump sending a loud and clear message on immigration, all part of this first press conference held by the press secretary Caroline Leavitt, highlighting the executive actions taken by the president in his first week in office during this White House briefing yesterday.
Since taking the oath of office, President Trump has taken more than 300 executive actions, secured nearly $1 trillion in U.S. investments, deported illegal alien rapists, gang members, and suspected terrorists from our homeland.
She read out loud a list of some of the illegal immigrants who've been detained during raids this week. Immigrations and Customs Enforcement has said Trump administration crackdown on those immigrants has resulted in about 3,500 arrests.
By using every lever of his federal power, President Trump has sent a loud and clear message to the entire world. America will no longer tolerate illegal immigration.
And she spoke about that hiccup with Colombia where they weren't initially taking flights of migrants that were being sent there.
Within hours, the Colombian government agreed to all of President Trump's demands, proving America is once again respected on the world stage.
Trump threatened them that he'd place 25% tariffs there, and so they changed their mind.
On day one, President Trump declared a national emergency at our southern border to end the 4-year-long invasion of illegal aliens under the previous administration.
By the way, this Caroline Leavitt is incredibly impressive. She's all of 27 years old, being the press secretary for the president. Wow. So she also talked about the aims on the part of the president to limit birthright citizenship.
This administration believes that birthright citizenship is unconstitutional, and that is why President Trump signed that executive order.
A federal judge temporarily blocked that order after at least 5 lawsuits were filed against it. But Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the president won't back down.
Illegal immigrants who come to this country and have a child are not subject to the laws of this jurisdiction. We have already appealed the lawsuit that was filed against this administration, and we are prepared to fight this all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to.
WABC News Time 513, Norfolk in Southern and the village of East Palestine, Ohio, reaching a settlement now. Remember that train derailment? Remember the one back in 2023 that led to a huge toxic spill?
The derailment caused toxic chemicals to contaminate the air, soil, and creeks in the area. East Palestine will be provided $22 million from the railway company to use for needs identified connected to the incident. In a joint statement, the two sides said the agreement now resolves all claims made by the village. Last year, Norfolk Southern agreed to pay $600 million to settle a class action lawsuit, with the money going to those impacted by the derailment. I'm Mark Mayfield.
514, let's go overseas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reported to be considering a trip to the U.S. next week to meet with President Trump. Here's correspondent Sarah Coates.
According to U.S. media, this potential upcoming trip to Washington by Benjamin Netanyahu is being seen as a gesture from Mr. Trump to the Prime Minister for agreeing to a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal.
Yeah, so Netanyahu's office says that no invitation has been extended so far.
It comes as the U.S. president has doubled down on his calls for Jordan and Egypt to take in Palestinians from Gaza, signaling a potential shift from a long-standing U.S. position that the Gaza Strip should be part of a future Palestinian state.
Yeah, and as you heard there, the reward to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu would come from President Trump, his first international guest, for signing that ceasefire last week. 5:15, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk. Happy Wednesday. Good morning, Justin Ella.
Happy Wednesday. Good morning to you, Noam Al-Laden. Start here on the ice at the Garden, and a bleak showing from the Rangers, getting blanked 4-0 at the hands of the Carolina Hurricanes. Rangers lost their second in a row after earning 10 points in 10 straight games. Igor Shesterkin made 22 saves for New York, finished January with an 8-3-3 mark after going 3-10-0 in December. Coming up next for the Rangers, they'll visit the Boston Bruins come Saturday. The Islanders had better luck in Elmont, where Simon Holmstrom scored twice and added an assist. Elias Sorokin made 30 saves, and the Islanders skated their way to a 5-2 win over the Colorado Avalanche. The teams went into the first intermission in a goalless tie, mostly due to the play of Sorokin. New York's goaltender made 14 saves in the opening 20 minutes, including 11 in the second half of the first period. Bo Horvat, Anders Lee, and Alexander Romanov also scored for New York, which has won 5 in a row. Tied at 1 entering the third. New York scored 4 straight. Horvat's 18th of the season, with just about 8.5 left as the game winner. Scott Perunovich made his debut with New York, who acquired the defenseman in a trade with St. Louis on Monday. Perunovich finished with 1 assist. Up next for the Isles, they'll begin a 3-game, 4-day road trip tomorrow night against Philadelphia. Nothing doing locally in the NBA last night, but looking ahead to tonight, both the Knicks and the Nets will return to action at 7 p.m. The Nets will tip off in Charlotte against the Hornets before the Knicks get underway at 7:30 at the Garden against the visiting Denver Nuggets. That is your Sports Know, and I'm Justin Ellick on 77 WABC.
WABC News Time 5:19. French President Emmanuel Macron visiting the Louvre yesterday after the museum's director called on the government to help with restorations to better protect the works of art that are housed there. It's an incredibly popular museum.
Problems at the Louvre include inadequate signage, a lack of space for visitors to take a break, and insufficient food and sanitary facilities. The director of the world's most visited museum says the centuries-old building is in a dire state and that a trip around the Louvre has become a physical ordeal.
Yeah, so Ross Cullen there, the correspondent of the Louvre, which counts the Mona Lisa, Venus de Milo, some of the work, some of the masterpieces there. They get like 9 million visitors a year. And you can't get, if you've ever been there, you can't get anywhere near the Mona Lisa. Of course, that's the one place that everybody wants to see. So apparently they're thinking about putting the Mona Lisa in its own little room and then off from the side of the museum, and so you can get closer to it.
The home of the Mona Lisa has requested urgent help from the French government for restorations to better protect its countless works of art.
5:20, let's bring it back home, go down to D.C. Capitol Police arresting a man with Molotov cocktails who was trying to kill House Speaker Mike Johnson and recently confirmed cabinet member Pete Hegseth.
Ryan English traveled from Massachusetts to Washington, D.C. According to court documents, he turned himself in to a Capitol police officer. They said they found a folding knife and 2 destructive devices in his jacket. I'm Brian Shook.
From Washington out to California with those wildfires, some of them still taking place. Palisades fire evacuees complaining about the process of repopulation there. This man recording a video of his encounter with a sheriff's deputy who told him he needed a pass before he could visit his house.
So it's January 27th.
Yes, sir.
I haven't been able to get to my house.
Yes, sir.
For 20 days.
I fully understand that.
And it's right down there. It's about 1 minute over there.
Yes, sir.
And here's my address.
Yeah, I fully understand that.
So you want me to go wait in line for 2 hours?
He recorded again after getting to the line. Estimated it would take him 5 hours to get to the front of that line so he could see his house. Of course, over the week, President Trump, Mayor Bass, declaring that all evacuated residents could re-enter this burn area with proper ID. But apparently, even if you have that, you wait for hours to get to see what happened to your house or get to your house to begin some of those renovations.
So I'm back, and it's 9:50 in the morning. And I have to go wait in a multi-hour, probably 5-hour line to get a pass to go to my house.
Meanwhile, all kinds of money being raised for the victims of the wildfires. Basketball legend Magic Johnson says he didn't hesitate to get involved in a new initiative that's called LA Rises. It'll bring the private sector together with the city, county, and state to accelerate recovery efforts from the fires. Johnson says it's something that's important to him.
My focus will be on Altadena because we're going to be left. Those people may be left behind. I want to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And Dodgers chairman Mark Walter, his foundation and the Dodgers, they've already committed $100 million to the initiative. And billionaire and Los Angeles Clippers owner Steve Ballmer wants to help the Los Angeles fire victims. Ballmer says he'll match all fire aid contributions that are made during the live broadcast this week, which is set to be carried by a bunch of streaming partners. The concert, whose lineup includes, you just heard there, Lady Gaga, be held at a bunch of venues, Billie Eilish, Katy Perry, Jelly Roll, all taking part in this, and that's pretty cool that the billionaire is going to match all money that comes into that fundraiser will be matched by him. 523. Did you see this letter from Caroline Kennedy warning senators about her her cousin, RFK Jr.? Now, President Trump's nominee, of course, to lead the Department of Health and Human Services, Caroline Kennedy, sending a letter to the folks on the committee who will decide whether to give him that gig, calling her cousin, her first cousin, a predator, whose victims have included family members and the parents of sick children. In a letter that was obtained by the Washington Post and sent to lawmakers ahead of Kennedy's confirmation hearings, the former ambassador to Japan and Australia alleges that her cousin is addicted to attention and power, has given hypocritical advice about discouraging parents from vaccinating their children while he vaccinated his own kids. She alleges that his crusade against vaccinations has also served to enrich him. And then she goes on to say, she really does not like Bobby. She says, I've known Bobby my whole life. We grew up together. It's no surprise that he keeps birds of prey as pets because he himself has been a predator. Now, we asked for some comment from RFK Jr. himself. A spokesperson did not immediately respond to that request. Kennedy, scheduled to face the Senate's Finance Committee today and its Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee on Tuesday as he tries to become the health commissioner. Caroline Kennedy goes on to claim in her letter that through the strength of his personality and other family members, they're trying to sink this whole thing. Whether they'll be successful or not, I guess we'll find out in the coming days. While we're down in Washington, lawmakers yesterday discussing the Panama Canal's impact on U.S. trade and national security. Texas Senator Ted Cruz says the Panama Canal vital to America's economic interests, and he says the Panama is treating America unfairly.
The Panama Canal was not just given away. President Carter struck a bargain. He made a treaty. And President Trump is making a serious and substantive argument that that treaty is being violated right now.
The Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, Transportation holding the hearing, where witnesses speaking included representatives from the Federal Maritime Commission and shipping law experts.
President Trump has highlighted two key issues. Number one, the danger of China exploiting or blocking passage through the canal. And number two, the exorbitant costs for transit.
This, of course, all comes after President Trump suggested the U.S. could take back control of the canal. 525, OpenAI is launching a new version of ChatGPT specifically for government agencies.
Called ChatGPT Gov, it will allow U.S. government agencies to use the most powerful version of the popular AI model. Its chief product officer said in a call Monday that AI is one of the great American inventions of our lifetime. He said the company's mission to work with the government includes both a civil and national security focus. Federal agencies will have access to ChatGPT Gov even when working with sensitive information. I'm Mark Mayfield.
WABC News Time 526. Did you see this whole dust up from Selena Gomez? She's upset about the children of illegal immigrants. The actress and singer posted an emotional message on her Twitter account. She then took it down, but lots of people got it before she did take it down.
The children, they don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do.
The former Disney star said she'll try somehow to be there for immigrants who fear federal agents may soon raid their communities looking for immigrants who are here in the country illegally. A documentary on Sly Stone and his band, Sly, of course, and the Family Stone, is set to premiere on Hulu.
I want to thank you for letting me be myself again.
Hulu has released a trailer for Sly Lives, also known as The Burden of Black Genius. The movie includes interviews with Stone's children and former band members, as well as with artists such as George Clinton, Chaka Khan, and Nile Rodgers. The film does not include any new interviews with Stone, but he does appear in archival footage throughout the movie. The documentary is going to be released on Hulu on February 13th. I'm Mark Mayfield.
It's the 77 WABC News Hour.
Talking the news with Noam Laden.
All the news you need to know with Joe Nolan, traffic, Justin Ellick, sports. And now,
Talking the news with Noam
on 77 WABC.
Yes, that's me, 5:34. Good morning. It is Wednesday, January 29th. Your forecast from the 77 WABC Weather Center. A mix of sun and clouds. Today it's going to be warm, high 48. Tonight and overnight, partly cloudy, low 26. And Thursday, sunshine, high 38. If you are walking out the door with us right now, so happy you are, it's 40, partly cloudy in Smithtown out on Long Island. It's 34 and partly cloudy in Hamilton over in New Jersey. And it's 37 and clear right outside our Midtown studios. We'll start this half hour in New Jersey. Today is sentencing day for former New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez. You'll remember back in July, the 71-year-old found guilty of 16 charges, including bribery, acting as a foreign agent for Egypt and Qatar. Menendez had argued that he should be provided with a new trial after the jury was presented with a laptop with evidence that was meant to be excluded. But last week, the judge involved in that case said, nuh-uh, we're going to do this anyway. Federal prosecutors asking the judge to sentence Menendez to 15 years behind bars, citing the rare gravity of his offenses. Now, some of the people he represented in New Jersey, he was a longtime politician, started off when essentially he was a kid in Union City. Most of those people, when you talk to them, they say, okay, if this guy was taking all kinds of bribes, gold bars, cash, maybe cars too, he should go to jail for a long time.
I think it's about time. I'm from New Jersey, so it's a horror show what he's done, and he denies it, and then he throws his wife underneath the bus. It's amazing, but well-deserved.
Menendez's lawyers are advocating for a lesser sentence that is no more than 27 months and is accompanied by community service, calling the maximum sentence vindictive and cruel, as it would also make him ineligible for a minimum security prison. But again, when you go to the streets of New Jersey, there's not a lot of people who have sympathy for Senator Menendez today.
I never had a great opinion of the guy, so I'm fine with it.
He had to step down. It's crazy what he did. And also it's just incompetent how he Googled his crimes and how he almost put it out there for everyone.
Yeah, Menendez, who began his political career all the way back in 1974 when he was elected to the Education Board in Union City and was elected to the House 1992 and became a senator in 2006 before stepping down last summer after his conviction. WABC News Time 5:38. The immigrant community in Asbury Park, New Jersey on edge after a single ICE arrest of a man heading home after dropping off his child at a school in Asbury Park. That move by ICE has rattled nerves, has prompted city leaders in Asbury Park to convene and try to give some advice to people who were in Asbury Park illegally. The Asbury Park mayor posting a memo on the city's website informing residents about their rights if they're stopped by ICE agents.
We knew the right thing to do was to get the message out to our residents and to the businesses as far as how they can protect themselves and if detained, what their rights are and what they should say and what they should do.
Now, local police say they were not informed of the coming arrest, but realize that there's little they can do because they're ICE agents. They can come in.
I also want to make clear under the Immigration Trust Directive, we're not assisting ICE in any way, nor are we going to hinder them in any way.
Now, no one knows if the person taken into custody had a criminal record. We can only assume that he probably did, but it has caused the immigrant community there to stay out of the public eye. And if you were listening earlier this morning, Cincinnati schools, at least a couple of the Cincinnati schools where they have large migrant populations of students, half the kids are out because their parents are worried about what might happen to their families. Now, we're not having those sort of numbers in Asbury Park, but we're getting reports from places like Asbury Park, Paterson, New Jersey, where they see a substantial amount of students, likely students of people who could be arrested, are keeping their kids out of class till they think, anyway, this all blows over. And so they're trying to convince those kids to come back to class. Whether they'll be successful or not, we'll have to see. 5:40, let's bring it back here into the city. A 15-year-old killed, another injured in a shooting that took place East Flatbush, Brooklyn, middle of the day yesterday. This is right along 93rd Street, about 3:30 in the afternoon. Police got a call that there was somebody who had been shot in the building of a lobby of a building there. The victim identified as Heath Campbell. He was taken to Kings County Hospital where he was pronounced dead. Locals say these kinds of shootings are all too common there.
It's a gang-infested area. That's another thing. So, it's not. I'm not surprised because of the simple fact. If you go through these hallways, you got people hanging in these hallways.
A 16-year-old boy shot in the right shoulder. Inside of a third-floor apartment in the same building, he sought refuge in his mother's apartment, taken to Brookdale Hospital, stable condition. The thought is that this is all gang-related. Police are not positive yet, and they do not know who carried out these shootings.
But it's not the first shooting we've had in the neighborhood, so something we live with.
Yeah, I mean, you can't say enough how tragic it is when you have teenagers being shot to death. Detectives have not yet confirmed if this is gang-related, but sources telling us this morning that it likely is. 5:42. Do you remember the story we were following all through December of a 14-year-old girl who walked out of her Patchogue home barefoot into a car, was driven away, and could not be found for weeks on end? Her father, her mother desperately looking for her. They finally found her on a houseboat in Islip and then told us, this is what the father told us, that she had been sex trafficked. Well, now the police have done a great job of collecting all the people who were involved, allegedly, I should say, in this case. And they are all facing all kinds of charges. But when you hear their stories, and if they're true, we can't say enough about how awful these human beings are. So one of the women who's involved in bringing this teenager to be involved in sex trafficking is Jacqueline Comiskey. Another one is Elizabeth Hunter. Now, Comiskey is accused of bringing this 14-year-old to a man's house in exchange for crack cocaine. Now, I mean, that's addiction for you, but geez, a teenage girl. He brought this teenage girl knowing exactly what would happen to her in exchange for crack cocaine. Hunter is accused of promoting a sexual performance of a child, including taking explicit photos of this 14-year-old. And the district attorney out in Suffolk County, Ray Tierney, says human trafficking is prevalent in the county. And so he wants to round up all these people, of course, throw them behind bars for as long as possible. And so he's successful at that.
When the whole saga began, that we were going to take a very serious look and we were going to work through the grand jury, and anyone who played a role in the abuse of a child, we were going to hold them responsible.
So 5 other defendants in the case facing rape and kidnapping charges. The 14-year-old victim was missing for weeks before being located on that boat in Islip by her father. Her father was the one who tracked her down. Governor Hochul's new subway safety plan, which involves a huge surge in officers, is now in full effect here in the city. So you get 2 cops on all 150 overnight subway trains between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. in the morning. Riders say they've noticed the increase of police, but they're not sure just yet if it's going to make a difference.
I think we need more cops, but you need more something for the homeless.
There's still homeless people. I mean, I know it's a huge undertaking, it's a huge task, but between what is said and done, it's a far stretch.
Yeah, so it's going to cost us, the taxpayers, $154 million in overtime for the beefed-up police presence. And riders who are nervous about riding the trains, well, for that matter, any time of day, but especially overnight, say, okay, I'm going to find these cops sit next to them on the train.
It's definitely going to have to be a permanent thing. Once they stop, they're all just going to come crawling back in here, thinking they can do whatever they want to do.
Right now, because they talking about that, they doing that. But isn't that something that they keep constantly doing?
It's interesting to hear those riders where they say, okay, this is great for now, but they know it's going to go away. But why not make it permanent if it really makes a difference?
As long as they're seeing actually what's going on, I feel like it's mostly just us having to witness all this and not them. But it'll help for sure. Just hope it's enough.
They put cops in places you can see them.
People got to realize they got to do their part too, So I always say that you want a good mayor, you got to help the mayor.
Well, you make a good point. 5:45, let's head over to the 77 WABC Sports Desk and Justin Allen.
Thank you, Noam Laden. Start here on the ice at the Garden, and a bleak showing from the Rangers, getting blanked 4-0 at the hands of the Carolina Hurricanes. Rangers lost their second in a row after earning points in 10 straight games. Shesterkin made 22 saves for New York, who finished January with an 8-3-3 mark after going 3-10-0 in December. Coming up next for the Rangers, they'll visit the Boston Bruins come Saturday. The Islanders had better luck in Elmont, where Simon Holmstrom scored twice and added an assist. Ilya Sorokin made 30 saves, and the Islanders skated their way to a 5-2 win over the Colorado Avalanche. The teams went into the first intermission in a goalless tie, mostly due to the play of Sorokin. New York's goaltender made 14 saves in the opening 20 minutes, including 11 in the second half of the first period. Horvat, Lee, and Romanov also scored for New York, which has won 5 in a row. Tied at 1 entering the third. New York scored 4 goals. Horvat's 18th of the season with just about 8.5 left was the game winner. Scott Perunovich made his debut with New York, who acquired the defenseman in a trade with St. Louis on Monday. Perunovich finished with 1 assist. Up next for the Isles, they'll begin a 3-game, 4-day road trip tomorrow night against Philadelphia. Nothing doing locally in the NBA last night, but looking ahead to tonight, both the Knicks and the Nets will return to action. At 7 p.m., the Nets will tip off in Charlotte against the Hornets before the Knicks get underway at 7:30 at the Garden against the visiting Denver Nuggets.
What's the line on the Eagles game, the Super Bowl, do you know?
I think the Eagles right now are sitting at +2.
Oh, really?
Underdogs, yes, indeed.
+2.
It's either a +2 or 1.5 right now. Yep.
Have you seen that ticket sales are pretty sour for the Super Bowl?
What do you mean sour? Like bad?
Well, it's going to be sold out.
Yeah, obviously.
But the prices are going down, not up, if you go on to like StubHub, places like that, because people are not that interested in the game.
Yeah, but in what world, even if the prices are going down, are you trying to entertain the fact that I might be able to afford actually going to the Super Bowl?
No, it's like $2 or $3 grand, the average tickets.
My dad went in Arizona in 2022 when the Eagles last went, and he said the entire weekend cost him about 10 grand.
Oh my God!
I mean, you can rent a house in Nantucket,
and then they
for a
lost,
week.
of course. Yeah.
You can rent a house in Nantucket for a week.
Right.
I'd rather do that.
Yeah.
I mean, come on now. I'll be on the couch. I'll be on the couch. I'll be watching. It'll be better that way, man.
With your 2 buckets of beer.
Exactly. Yeah. On an 80-inch TV. It'll be glorious. My God, surround sound. Get it to me. Back to you, Noam.
WABC News Time 5:49. So the White House yesterday was talking about the drones that were spotted in New Jersey, a whole bunch of other places, but the big part was New Jersey. During this press conference, it was Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt's first press conference, and so she talked about these drones and what they know about the drones.
The drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA.
Now, they didn't give us a lot of information. The Trump administration promised they would tell us everything they knew, but all they told us was that the vast majority of these drones that you've seen in the skies back in December, now in January, are being flown by hobbyists. But then others, they say, had more or government tied, here, I'll let her explain.
Many of these drones were also hobbyists, recreational, and private individuals that enjoy flying drones.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
In time, it got worse due to curiosity. This was not the enemy.
Now, she did say that some of these drones were involved in some sort of projects, but she didn't specifically say what those projects were. And Josh Gottheimer, the congressman from New Jersey, kind of had the same reaction that I did, too. There wasn't complete transparency here about what they know about all of these drones. And they said they're all American drones. In other words, it's not, foreign adversaries trying to come into our airspace. But that's all they told us. So here was Josh Gottheimer yesterday.
Said those drones were literally for research and study and other reasons. I'd like to know what research and study and what other reasons we're talking about. Why are they flying these drones over Jersey?
Yeah, they still haven't told us all of these details. And that's taking place as people in New Jersey are seeing these drones back up in the sky and having these same questions they've had back in December. Here they are again.
We had no idea. We were just kind of glued to the window watching every night, kind of jumping around a little bit and hovering.
The sightings led to the FAA issuing that temporary flight restriction in parts of New York, New Jersey for unmanned aircraft back in December. But that's over now. So if you're seeing those lights in the sky, I don't think they're UFOs. They're most likely these drones, or it's an airplane landing at Newark. The Port Jervis School District up in the Hudson Valley is joining in on some growing pushback surrounding a state directive that requires district with Native American type names to get rid of those names and change them out. The New York Education Department mandate requires schools change sports teams' names previously tied to indigenous imagery, and they have to do it by July 1. Now, most schools, and the vast majority of them, by the way, for some reason are on Long Island, but most of the schools on Long Island have changed their names or are about to change their names. But some other schools are pushing back. A couple on Long Island, and this one up in the Hudson Valley in Port Jervis. There are the Red Raiders, and they want to keep that name, Port Jervis High School, the Red Raiders. A former mayor says it's a pride thing. I mean, he says he doesn't think it's offensive at all.
We are known as the Red Raiders. It is a term of endearment.
Yeah, he says it's a term of endearment. Now, when you talk to students at the school, this is not all of them, but some of them, saying, no, they think it's time to change the name because if it's offensive to Native Americans, they should change it.
Really necessary? I honestly feel that the name that they have is an insult to the Native American Indians.
So 3 schools on Long Island are suing the state over the mandate. Port Jervis, I guess, is going to take part in this as well. Some of those schools out on Long Island are known as the Warriors or the Chiefs. And there have been, by the way, Native American groups who have complained. So I'll put that out there, and that's part of the reason the state mandate came down. 5:53, go to Newark, New Jersey. A dog has been reunited with its owner in Newark after it was kidnapped more than a week ago. We told you about this story last week. The dog's owner, Sylvia Thomas, is thrilled to have her pooch back.
It was really her reaction to us to let us know that it was her immediately, because she was just so happy to see me. I was just happy to see the dog was alive and the dog was healthy.
Yeah, so we don't know the whole story, but police released surveillance footage showing a woman walking away with the dog last week. They issued a warrant for her arrest. But then this woman got a text that the dog was being held and for ransom of some sort. Then on Sunday, the owner got a text from another man, from a stranger, who asked to meet with her. And she said, okay. And when she showed up at this location, he handed her dog back. So we don't know what's going to happen. She says she's not interested in pressing charges against whoever did this. She's just happy to have her dog back home. Call it a Groundhog Day deja vu all over again for a 5th year in a row. A New Jersey borough, the borough of Milltown, is canceling its beloved Groundhog Day celebration for a simple and pretty important reason. They can't get a groundhog due to state law. Now, they've been doing Groundhog Day for years, and apparently they get like thousands of people. They'll have like 7,000 people show up at this celebration. The groundhog passed away, and they wanted to get a new one, but there's a restriction on these animals in New Jersey. Now, it seems like it'd be a simple fix. Just go to these state lawmakers and say, hey, let's get us a groundhog, but I guess it's not that easy.
So it's a big tradition in town, and it's like one big family. We all gather here, and hopefully we could get it back soon.
Yeah, so the town will once again be nixing this popular event for 2025. The problem started in 2021 when Milltown Mel passed away. Wranglers found a replacement in Tennessee, brought it to town to assume the important role, but they had to just surrender that replacement groundhog to the state officials, thanks to the state law that bans importing animals who have the potential to carry rabies. Now, again, it seems like a simple fix would do this, right? Go to the state and say, come on, we're using this for Groundhog's Day, but apparently that's not worked so far.
It was attended by almost 1,000 people. The last couple of years we did, it was amazing. Unfortunately, we can't start up again until we can get a new groundhog.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they should just do it anyway. Okay, so now they have to cancel it again this year. I guess there's a fair amount of disappointed people who like Groundhog's Day.
We're still not allowed to do it yet because the law has not been changed yet. So until that happens, we can't legally obtain a groundhog and be its caretakers.
Yeah, so for those in the area still looking for a Groundhog Day fix, I mean, I can't imagine there's many of you, but maybe there are. The Essex County Turtleback Zoo is doing a Groundhog's Day. That's not so far away from Milltown.